Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here with the What a Deck profile for the Meta A.S.S deck. I'm just going to go through everything in here, and then I'll explain how it works. So for monsters, we're playing 3 Doom Caliber Knight, 2 Thunder King Rio, 3 Fossil Dyna, 3 Barrier Statue of the Torrent, 3 Barrier Statue of the Inferno, 3 Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds, and 3 Jowgen the Spiritualists. For spells, we've got 1 Raigeki, 3 Pot of Duality, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Forbidden Lance, and 3 Moon Mirror Shield. For traps, we're playing 3 Mirror Force, 1 Vanities Emptiness, and 1 Phantom Knight Sword. The extra deck I'll actually go over in a bit. It's not too important, but there is one thing I want to note about it. So if you're unfamiliar with it, A.S.S is an acronym that stands for Anti-Special Summon Deck. Some people would call this Barrier Statue Stun. I prefer the term A.S S, both because it's a clever little wordplay, and also you kind of feel like an ass when you play this sometimes, because you can just lock people down. It prevents your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially when they're playing something like Zodiacs. That's what this was made specifically to counter. It can counter other decks. It's pretty good against Masked Heroes. It's pretty good against Eidolons. Decent against ABCs. But mostly this is just an anti-Zodiac deck. So I guess to start with, we should talk about the Barrier Statues. If you're unfamiliar with them, they're all about the same. They're all level 4 monsters with 1,000 attack and defense. And their effects are all, no monsters can be special summoned except for a certain attribute of monsters. There's 1 for each attribute. We're playing the water, the fire, and the wind ones because those are the attributes you're least likely to run into. Light and dark usually make up a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And earth is what all the Zodiacs are. So we're not playing the earth. We've just got it in the side deck. In case you run against like Mermaid Atlanteans, you can swap out the water for the earth. In addition to the Barrier Statues, we're playing Fossil Dyna and Jowgen the Spiritualists, both of which say no monsters can be special summoned whatsoever. They have other effects too, but the important part is just that these are all continuous effects that stop your opponent from special summoning. Generally, the tactic with this deck is you want to try to go first if you can, and then you set up a board with one of these on there. Your opponent's not going to be able to special summon, and instead they'll have to normal summon monsters. They'll have to beat these down. So we play a lot of cards that protect your monsters from being destroyed by battle. Probably the best card for this is Moon Mirror Shield. If you're unfamiliar with this, it's an equipped card, and if the equipped monster battles, its attack and defense become equal to whatever the highest stat of that monster they're battling is, plus 100. What that means is if it has higher defense or higher attack, you're going to gain that much, plus 100, so you'll always be able to kill anything in battle. This also has the effect that if it's sent to the graveyard, you can pay 500 life points to put it on the top or bottom of your deck. So as long as you've got one of your other monsters here to put it on, you can always put it on top of your deck, and then just use it again. Similarly effective is Phantom Knight Sword. This is going to increase a monster's attack by 800, which turns all your Barrier Statues into 1800 beaters, which may not sound like much, but when you're dealing with monsters that can be normal summoned, 1800's pretty sizable attack. It also has the effect that if that monster would be destroyed, you can destroy this equipped card instead, which will really help for things like Raigeki, Dark Hole. If you get your monsters out, they can't deal with them with monster effects normally. They're going to have to destroy them with card effects or battle, and this protects you a little bit with both. Likewise, we've got Forbidden Lance, sort of the same deal, except for it's a quick play spell card. You can activate it during either player's turn, but it only lasts for that turn. And that's target a monster on the field. It loses 800 attack, but it's unaffected by other spell traps. So again, you can use this to save your monsters from Dark Hole and Raigeki, and if you need to, if they attack into you, you can lower a monster's attack by 800. In addition, we're playing 3 Mirror Force, just the old standard. This one has fallen out of favor just because destroying monsters isn't as good as it used to be. A lot of monsters will float, they'll replace themselves by special summoning another one when they get destroyed. But they can't do that if you have the Barrier Statues out, so this one actually works pretty well. A lot better than like the Storming Mirror Force, because a lot of times they normal summon a monster, so if you send it back to the hand, it just stalls them for a turn. They can normal summon it again. I do play 3 of these in the side deck though, just because in case they already have a field established, this can be the better choice, second duel once you know what you're playing against. Other than that, we're just playing Vanities Emptiness. This is neither player can special summon and destroy this card if it's sent from the deck to the grave. This is a staple in most decks. I'd be surprised if you didn't already know what it is. I normally don't play it because it can be kind of sacky most of the time, but when your deck is nothing but stopping special summons, it kind of makes sense to put it in there. And then finally we're playing Raigeki just to clear the field, and Pot of Duality. Reveal the top 3 cards, add 1 to your hand, shuffle the rest of your deck, and you can't special summon the turn you activate this. This is pretty good. It's going to let you look at the top 3 cards so you can pick either a monster or one of your protection spell traps, whichever you need at the time. And of course we don't special summon, so the downside of this is non-existent here. We're also playing Cosmic Cyclone. This is pay 1,000, target 1 spell trap on the field, banish it. This is just our spell trap removal. I went with this one, again, just anti-meta. A lot of newer spell trap cards have effects that can be used in the graveyard. A lot of pendulum decks, obviously, if they get destroyed, they go to the extra deck. So this really helps screw your opponent over if they're playing newer spell traps. So all that's left is the rest of these monsters. I should mention these other two effects. So Jowgen has the effect that you can discard one random card from your hand to destroy all special summoned monsters on the field. This effect, like the Mirror Force, can be a pretty deadly combo at times. You normal summon this, and then you blow up everything on the field, and they're not going to be able to special summon anything back as long as this is on the field. Fossil Dyna has the effect that when it's flipped face up, you can destroy all special summoned monsters on the field. This effect doesn't come into play very often, mostly because you're not going to be setting cards unless you're already on the defensive. But I've had a few comeback games where I blew up everything on my opponent's field and they weren't able to summon anything else, and that let me establish my field. These are both really good comeback cards along with YGOPro, where if you have to go second, your opponent sets up a field first, you could summon these or set this, blow up your opponent's field, and then establish this anti-summoning field so that they can't get over you. These last two monsters are just kind of techs. They're both 1900 beat sticks, which makes them really good at this deck. If you don't have your Moon Mirror Shield, if you're just sort of sitting on one of these, maybe in defense mode, this can be really good for getting that damage on board. Thunder King Rio also has the ability to shut down special summons, but only a built-in special summon they would Ixie summon, and you have to tribute it to negate it. So it has a little bit of anti-special summoning, but not a lot. Its main effect is that neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. So if your opponent's stalling and trying to draw through their deck really quickly, this will shut that down while also giving you a beat stick. It'll also prevent you from using Pot of Duality, so be wary about that. Don't summon one of these if you have a bunch of Pot of Dualities in hand. Doom Caliber Knight, meanwhile, is effect negation. If you're unfamiliar with this guy, he has a mandatory effect that when an effect monster's effect is activated, tribute this card, negate the activation, and destroy that monster. He can be useful for dealing with smaller cards that have effects if they're going to be bouncing your cards back or raising their attack over and over again. This can be a good way to get rid of it. And that's pretty much it for the main deck. It's fairly simple for the most part. The extra deck, like I said, is kind of weird. I very rarely go into it. It's mostly a rank 4 toolbox because everything we play is level 4 except for Jowgen. You could put whatever you want in here. The only real thing of interest is because you have these barrier statues. If you have 2 barrier statues of the same kind, like 2 barrier statue of the Stormwinds, you could still Ixie summon wind monsters using them. So I try to play at least 1 lightning Chidori, so you have wind. I play Back the Cook in case I get 2 fires, and I play Bahamut Shark in case I get 2 waters, and then you can make Tree Toad, which is always nice to drop on people in a barrier statue deck. Other than that, it's really play whatever you want, just in case you get 2 Doom Caliber Knights or 2 Thunder King Rios or something like that. You can always build something. It's just good to have it back up. It also helps with the side deck. This side deck is actually what I would probably play in the side deck, or something similar to it. It's designed basically, once you go first, then in the second duel your opponent knows what you're playing, and you're going to be going second. So you put in some dark holes, those will help you clear the field when they already have things established, and then you put in Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's during either player's turn. If your opponent controls more monsters than you can discard this card, reveal 1 card in your extra deck. Look at your opponent's extra deck, and if they have any copies of that card you revealed, they banish all copies of them. So this is just really good for taking out any deck that relies on extra deck cards. ABC Buster Dragon, you can just get rid of all of them first turn, all their Dark Laws, whichever Eidolon Beast you don't like in particular, whichever Zodiac you don't like in particular, Tree Toad, anything really, just fill the side deck with whatever's the most popular extra deck cards you can get your hands on. And that's why we play the extra deck, because if you're unfamiliar with side decking, you have to be able to swap out the same number of cards. So as long as you play that full side deck, you could take out like, oh, okay, well, they're not going to be summoning Ragna Zero. Put in your Zodiacs instead, put in your Dark Laws, whatever you need to help take out their deck. So there you go, that's the anti-Meta A.S.S deck. Probably not the most effective anti-meta deck, but a fun old standard. I put a couple texts in there, a couple little twists on it, and it works pretty well in that most of the time if you go first, your opponent will just surrender immediately. Next time I'll be playing something a little newer, a newer Synchro archetype. You can guess in the comments what you think that is. Until then, good luck and have fun.